Hello and welcome. My name is BlueTNT and today I'm here to make a guide on every single Blox card's archetype. For new players, I will not be giving you guides on how to make tricolor or dual color archetypes because they're too complicated and new players are not going to be able to make those. Well, got to start eventually, so I'll play the intro. Ultras. Okay, so Ultras, why am I in full caps lock? Okay, whatever. Ultras are an archetype all about shuffling Ultras into your deck. So as you can see here, Ultra Bestower shuffles 2 Ultra cards into your deck. Now the Ultra cards are, well, more Bestowers than these guys, but there are also these tokens. The Ultra cards you cannot get from this are Annihilator and Obliterator. I'm pretty sure you can't get these from Random Give. However, the rest of the Ultras you can get. Now, I'm just going to go on the wiki because, well, you can't actually put them in your deck naturally. You have to get them from these two guys. So let me just review every single Ultra card real quick. This one's amazing. This one's awesome. This one's okay. This one has 1,000 stats. This one does 400 damage to a target fighter. This one's just ever so slightly annoying. This one is the bane of my existence. And this one isn't part of the Ultra archetype. Why is this here? This doesn't have anything to do with Ultras. As well as all these cards are actually just free. They don't cost any studs. The only thing they require is for you to cast the Ultra Gate. So then you can cast these guys so that you can shuffle copies of these guys into your deck. Now, the way you actually build this deck is you just shove as many cards that can draw other cards into it as possible. Because 1, all the cards are free, and 2, you shuffle more cards into your deck so you can never mill yourself. For this, yellow is the best color, because it has the most amount of mass draw, like, for example, Consult the Archives, which allows you to draw 4 cards in 1 turn. And if all the fighters in your deck are free, those are 4 cards you can cast. Other stuff like Dicey Dave, which draws 3 cards but destroys your hand. And if all your cards are free, you're not going to have many cards in hand because you're casting as many as possible. Miso Sad, another great choice because it's also a starter, so it helps you at the beginning of the game. Although it can kind of screw you over sometimes. Rainbow Pathrider is just free draw cards. Coin Flipper is really funny, but you actually have to, like, be a psychic to use it. Stacy is amazing because it gives you a card you can discard or actually use sometimes. And you draw a card as well. Power Popularity is very good in Ultras. As long as you're not using Annihilator, which you shouldn't be using Annihilator or Obliterator. They're just bricks. They don't help you. Anyways, continuing. Oddsman Gambit. You don't care about colorless studs, so this is just draw 2. You can actually run Snake World, but I doubt you'll ever get rank 9 in the game, so this is only for people who can do funny memes. If you can make a funny meme Snake World deck with Ultras, I applaud you. Some other really good cards in Ultras are non-returns. You do not want to return your package. Pancake Break, because if all your fighters are free, and you return all your fighters, you get to have all your cast effects again. And that's insanely powerful. Free cards out of 10. The next group is the funniest group in the game, because this is not a valid strategy. So, this is an archetype where you summon these things called Morphic Goos. Now, Morphic Goos are a token, and you can't actually put them in your deck. What they do is whenever a card targets it, you summon a random fighter. Literally any fighter. It could be a Talamon. It could probably be a Gladiator. Or it could be a Canoon. Who knows? Not me. All you need for this strategy is to just simply look up target and say, Darting Poop Ahead is a very strong fighter that locks the target allied fighter, which activates the goo and summons a random fighter and ignores the downside. Okay. A police officer. Locks a fighter. Wait, the card has bad stats. Don't use it. Don't use police. Don't do it. Oh, hello, Master. It targets whenever you attack. That's actually pretty good. Oh, Giver Trap. It it returns a target fighter you don't control and one you do control. Wait, that activates the goo effects. Wait, you can use that on a goo and summon a random fighter. And return a target enemy fighter. That's really good. Oh, Destruction 5033. Whenever you cast a fighter with total stats 500 or less, a target fighter loses 150 power. Isn't that really good for debuffing enemy fighters and also targeting my own goos to summon random fighters? Huh? That's very convenient, actually. You get the point. Target effects are good in goo, and there's a lot of them in blue. Either way, this isn't really a viable deck because it's all gambling, so I don't recommend it. Random number out of 10. Next, we have the police. Alright, so let's go over some things with police. First of all, police officer sucks. Do not run this card. It is so bad. Why is it so bad? Well, it's inert in play. Why is it inert in play? It doesn't need to be inert. Like, sure, it suspends a target fighter, which unlocks them, but like, it's inert. It doesn't need to be inert. Just run Luigi Fan instead for your starter, because you actually only need 4 starters for a deck to be viable. If you want another starter, just run Darn Poop Head. Trust me. You get Locks, way better stats. It's just way better. And like your unlock options already Gravity Inspector. You already have one, and there's a ton in blue already. Like for example, unlock. Like the Cinematic Mind, if you want an unlock. Although I don't recommend this card either, but it's better because it's not a nerd. Wiki Warrior, because actually, yeah, this is actually just really good at police. Run this. It actually is not. There's actually less than I thought there is, but it's fine. Like those 2 options is just better than police. Now in a police deck, I've not made a police deck before. This is gonna be a hard video. The main goal is just to lock your fighters and then unlock them. So literally anything that has the word lock is very helpful. Bloxy Tea Party is a no-brainer. It gives all fighters buffs, which could be a problem if your enemies spam a bunch of stuff, but otherwise it won't be that much of an issue. And you also lock all your fighters, which can help stall your opponents, and also helps you with your effects. Stale Skin is mid and I don't recommend it, but it's funny as well, so I recommend it. Gatoluz, maybe, if you're feeling it. Low hit because infinite card draw, anyone? No, seriously, that card is stupid. It should not exist. Your name, just because your name is one of the most broken blue cards for just controlling the board. Steven L15, because giving all your fighters extra HP is nice, and also locking them is helpful. You can use Dodgeball Player Blue if you want both swap and unlock. Although if you wanted swap, you could also just use Yoshis, because like 2 blue swap is very strong, especially since it has a body. Lunar Nullification Field is a very interesting card, because Defender can cause some very zany shenanigans, especially if you're causing like your entire opponent's shield to be locked all the time, so they can only attack limitedly. And also it gives you a lock. Wesker 202 is an auto-include that you should just run. Silver Cornball, obviously. Okay, well it is a card only obtained in the Metaverse series developers and contributors. So it actually makes sense if you want to have him, because I do not recommend any new players to have this card. Do not buy the Metaverse series, developers and contributors. It is a waste of your money early game. If you want to like spend 5k on a pack or something, sure. Just not this. Or alt arts. And that's basically everything I have to say about police. I haven't made the deck type before, because it looks really boring, I'll be honest. Korblox. Alright, so Korblox is our very first pre-con group, which means that it already has a pre-built deck. If you want to know how to get here, just enter the shop. Why is this game lagging so hard right now? What the heck? Anyways, enter the shop, and yeah, you can get all the cards immediately. Now, there are some issues with this pre-con. So the first issue is that it's using a Korblox skeleton. Do not use this card. please do not use this card. And secondly, it's using Korblox General. Now, Korblox General isn't terrible because of the recent buff it got, but there's also just better options. Although, this is a fine precon deck, especially since Korblox is one of the best groups. Just, like, replace these two cards. And suddenly you have, like, 7 deck slots for any legendary blue cards you have, any other, like, super helpful blue cards you have, like, that swap card I was talking about earlier, Yoshis. My personal Korblox deck, yeah, I have a personal Korblox deck, I am annoying, looks like this. It's using Frozen Phoenix, because if you get the 12 studs, you win. I'm using normal Death Knight art, because I haven't bought the precon. Vitex, Dead Zone Zaxac, Silver, and Giver's Wrap, some other stuff too. If you like just ignore the alt arts, like here's some suggestions. That's it for Korblox. Cool out of 10. Okay, next this is a pretty simple one, thankfully. Lycanthrope. I am not gonna have a voice at the end of this. What? Well, I can nope, that's not what I wanted. Okay, as I was saying, so Lycanthrope is an archetype all about casting an action and then doubling your stats. First of all, number 1, don't run Eclipse of Rage Gyre. You're never gonna have 500 less life. Most of the time. Like 99% of the time, if you have 500 less life, you have 0 life. Next is New Hazen World. Do not run New Hazen World. It doesn't work. Next is Den Protector. I wouldn't run Den Protector either. Because the problem with Den Protector is that it's not a very offensive card. It has no power, and with Lycanthropes, you want to speedrun the match as fast as possible, and this just doesn't help you with that. Like, sure, the Pack Wolves can be helpful, but they're not that important. Okay, so how do I play the archetype now that I've killed like 3 of the cards? Well, it's actually very simple. Grab everything else, and then just search actions. And also remember, terrains are not actions. So if we find one, that's a terrain. That does not count as an action, I'm pretty sure. So there are a couple actions you need to know about. First of all, Birthday Surprise is so dumb with Lycanthropes, because Lycanthropes double their stats when you cast an action for the first time. And they all have low health, so that you don't like get a billion health when you cast an action. If you cast Birthday Surprise, you're gonna have a billion health. Use Mob Mentality, because there's a damage immune card in this, so yeah, you should use Mob Mentality. Pixie Dust Trail is a very cheap red action that draws a card. Why not? You can use Unity of Rage for some funny stuff, but that's about it. Moon Rabbit's Rage is very funny because it's actually a 700 power buff if you put it on a Lycanthrope. That's right, 700 power buff. Same thing with Sub-GJ and not Redcliff Decimate. This is not Redcliff. Where's Kid of Deception? And Kid of Deception? These are 600 power buffs because Lycanthropes double the power. You should run Kid of Deception and Lycanthrope. Please run Kid of Deception and Lycanthrope. Why are you not running Kid of Deception and Lycanthrope? What are you doing? You should run Kid of Deception and Lycanthrope out of 10. Epic Sauce is, well, it's pretty funny, although I'm not sure how good it is. And that's pretty much all you need to know about Lycanthrope. Basically just a deck where you just try and speedrun the game as fast as possible. My job is now extremely easy because Redcliff has a precon. And honestly, this precon's pretty good, except it does have some problems. Number 1, it's running Javier Killer without Fleeing Survivor. Personally, I just replaced the Redcliff Messenger with Fleeing Survivor so that, well, you have Fleeing Survivor, one of the best red cards in the game, and you can use it with Javier Killer. I'd probably replace Ignis Mage with other bread options like Hypervoxel, and then the Red Rune Raiders. Anything that does damage when you cast it. Rise out of 10? So the Federation is a archetype all about having actions that cost more than 8 cards. What? More than 8 studs. I am losing my mind. So all of the cards in the Federation are actually pretty good to run. like all these Starstones. Okay, so all the cards in Federation are good to run, as well as all the Starstones, except Ruby. This one's just not very good. Anyways, the support for this are any red actions that cost more than 8 studs. This includes stuff like Meteoric Fist. Even if you like get the 5 red discount, that is still technically something that costs 8 studs. Colossal Final Gambit. Either way, a lot of the staples from Redcliff apply. Fleeing Survivors also cries for both Redcliff and Federation. They're pretty similar. Red decks are all pretty similar. They all run very similar stuff. Maybe Javier Killer if you want. If you're running Fleeing Survivors, run this. Yeah, most red decks just use the same cards like Pixel Pistol, Fleeing Survivors, Javier Killer, Nim, Nicholas. Like those are in like every red deck. You're kind of insane if you're not running those cards. I'll say it. So I see so many people build this deck wrong and also think this deck is good. Both those things are not true. For like new players, fighting new players, Meeboid's fine, I guess. But it's not overpowered. You're lying to yourself if you say it is. It's just not. Anyways, what are some common mistakes in Meeboids? First of all, the starters. Many people run like 12 Meeboid starters because they're running like Meebling and Meeboid Cultist. You should not be running Meebling. The way you're getting your Meeblings is from Meebling Infestation, because this card is genuinely overpowered. I cannot explain how good this card is. Either way, Meebling generally just not very good. Why? Well, a one colorless card that has next to nothing in terms of stats, that's also inert, and effect only activates if you have 3 or more Meeboids, is not very good. Sure, it puts Meeboids as your base plate, but like, this is the deadest draw in the game. Put in other cards, because this is awful. So anything to do with life is probably pretty good in Meeboid. What is that? Not giving life? No, that's actually... Getting life in Meeboid is not important at all. Getting life is more like a side effect of all the Meeboid cards. But like, getting life should not be your main focus. So like, Witch, don't run it. There's no point. You could just have other cards instead. So like, the only cards I actually recommend is Nasax, because, well, it's a power option. You need power in this deck. Joker Kid, because the power is pretty good, especially if it's AoE. Western, because it activates Nasax and Joker Kid, and it also has very nice stats, and it's also pretty cheap. And that's all the cards related to life I recommend. You might have noticed that was a very short list. It's because there's not many good cards that activate with life. So what are some actually good cards you can run? David, script is very good. Lumber Tycoon is so good for one and one reason only. It gives Meeboids power and health. Specimen Migration, if you want like a good starter. Alpha Bricks Bestowment, because it's just script, but it ignores Destroy Immunes. Divide is very interesting, and I honestly recommend it. Sparism is really funny. I have nothing else to say about it. Naya is like very cheap transform, and transforms one of the uh, funniest ways to annoy your opponents. This can actually be used in Meeboids to have power. So, for example, like your starter has 500 health, but like 200 power, which is nothing. But you can use this to give it 250 health, which is, again, nothing. But 500 power, which can be used to kill something. I would actually run this. If your deck doesn't use that much colorless, I kind of recommend Barcode, but I also recommend Chase the Psycho a lot more. It depends on what your deck needs. If you're struggling against like more swarmy decks that swarm the board, use Barcode. If you want to be a bit more tanky, use Chase the Psycho. Run this card. Haste in green is stupid. That card just shouldn't exist, because it shouldn't exist. Nibblins is a lot of cards. So this card actually gives you life, And also it has very high stats. Like, what's not to love? Also, the eggs give you life, not the card itself. This could actually be used to buff your own fighters if you don't have like other buffs. And also debuff enemy fighters. So around that, yeah. Overall, Meeboid out of 10. Once again, Overseer is another precon. Where is it? There it is. And honestly, yeah, this precon is pretty good as well. Thomas Beans, Waddle Tom. Like, most of this is pretty good. I actually don't think any of the Overseer cards are bad. Which is, like, I think very, very rare for archetypes, actually. The starters is a little meh, but it's not horrible. It's not completely awful. Like, the base stats of it are actually pretty good. Although, I will say, there's a lot more cards that you can use than just those. For example, you can use Crazy Caleb. That's a choice that they didn't put in the precon, but this is something you can use. You can use Lumber Tycoon. It's actually pretty good in this as well. It's actually just really good in any green deck, actually. Like, the more you think about it, the better it gets. Chase the Psycho is another great option. Overall, health spam out of 10. Alright, the new one, Babylonian. Thankfully for us, Babylonian has a pre-built deck. Woohoo, let's go. I had to do, like, no work. And honestly, yeah, this pre-built deck has some problems. Pico Pico Man recently got nerfed, and it went from one of the best cards in green to overpriced Chef. Like, this is just Chef, but it costs 4 green and 2 white. It just doesn't make sense. Why would you ever run this anymore? Instead of running Pico Pico Man, you can run literally anything else that does damage. Corthing Gorillas is my personal favorite. You also have Typical Type, which is absolutely insane. And also Stickmaster Luke, because, well, just look at it. You do damage to enemy or allied fighters, and you get more health over time. It's just a great card. If you want, you can use Hat Helper. It's effectively just old Pico Pico, except worse stats. And it only costs colorless, and it also generates colorless. Pretty nice, honestly. So, yeah, you can't convince me this isn't zombies out of 10. No. Okay, so this is a very smaller type. Run all of these, because if you don't, this card's just not gonna work. The idea of this deck... Hold up, I'm gonna need the wiki page to explain this one. So, you have like 5 fighters and 6 token actions. So these 3 give the actions, and then these 3 give these actions. And if it's a bad one, like Aquacry Phage, do not cast Aquacry Phage. I swear, do not cast this card. Do not cast this card. You can discard it and get free base plate, or you can cast it and use its OP effects. Like, for example, Aquacry Phasing. This card is stupid. Why does this card exist? You can turn all your allied fighters into cards that can't be affected by basically anything. Why does this exist? Okay, so what are some good cards to use with Aquacry Phantoms or Aquacry? Because, well, you have a lot of deck slots. Well, a lot of the stuff I said earlier also applies, but anything that like gets more stuff into your base plate also helps. McDavid helps you get more cards. Specimen Migration gives you 2 cards you can discard, although I don't recommend discarding either of them. Maybe you could discard one of them when you cast this and then cast the other. You really want to cast one of them at least. The double discard's just not worth it. Jacking 4 because you're gonna give yourself cards anyways. Yeah, this is a very easy card to activate. Although it is a card quest. Although if you're playing Aquacry, you're giving yourself a lot of cards anyways. Judgmental Aquacry Phantom and Enriched Neutriness they're like the same card, except one's an archetype and one's epic synergy.
Corporate needs you to find the differences between this picture and this picture. They're the same picture.
Oh, actually, XX Wonders, those are pretty good. Basically anything that like can make your opponent lose power, do damage, or control them in some ways, pretty nice. Although I wouldn't run stuff like Chef and Langs, because they're very low value, low stud cost cards. You want stuff that's a bit more expensive in this deck. Actually, your win condition. So the way you win with this is you get this card, which makes all allied Apocrypha generate, and then using that, and if you have like 6 on the field, you'll generate like 20 studs. Using that, you then add Crystalline Megaflora, and you win the game. If you cast this, you win the game. That's it. That's pretty simple. And that's basically Apocrypha Anthem. Any questions? No? Great. Makes me want to cry out of 10. Surprise, surprise! The next two archetypes are both precons. First one being Doge. Doge is a very simple archetype. Basically, you cast stuff like Uncle Doge and Shamrock Doge to fill your board with Doges, and then cast stuff like Captain Doge to buff them. There are a couple things you should know about the Doge archetype. First of all, don't use Doge Hound. Why? Because there's no point. You'd rather just run other buffs instead of this. Plus, it doesn't help you swarm the board since it doesn't have an effect. And if you want like a high stat fighter, just run Silky Dev. Other than this precon's actually pretty good. I do have some suggestions, of course. Of course, Hallow's Boon is amazing in this. If you want to not have a hard time against very high stat fighters, Zelik is your best friend. Stacy, always a really good yellow card. I highly recommend it. Animal Logic, because power buff and haste. Very nice. And that's basically it for Doge. Next, we have Toy Precon. Now, Toys recently just got a nerf, but they're still really good, so let's just start explaining. First of all, your win condition is Call of the Teddy Bear. What's this? I don't know. Call of the Teddy Bear is your win condition. Secondly, you don't want Toy Plane. There's no point for you to have Toy Plane. You don't need health in your deck. You also don't need like 20 billion starters. For your starter options, all you need is Toy Truck, Toy Teeth, and Toy... Actually, Toy Jet Fighter is also kind of... It's an interesting card. Valhita is okay, but I personally recommend... I would recommend Consult the Archives, but with its changes, it makes it way less good in toys. I would comment more on how to build toys, but I've built like 2 toy decks in my entire life, and that was before all the massive nerfs they had. So for now, this deck's pretty decent, I'll just say that for sure. So first of all, don't run your starter. Run Pixel Flame. Sure, it's off color, but 1, it's good stats, and 2, it's just more consistent actually. It's funny how that is more consistent. Coptus is also, well, it's awful. Don't use Coptus and Baby Noob. You can decide whether or not you want to use Hister. I do. You may not. Who knows? Maybe you hate how I use Pixel Flame because it's off color. I don't care. You're running Noobs anyways. Again, with Noobs, just search up Life and get Lily S. Lily S carries the deck. It's funny how a card not even in Noobs is how Noobs play the game. And that's it for Noobs. And that's also the end of this video. I might make a part 2 if I feel like it, but I just did like the monocolor archetypes because there's so many archetypes, and this video is already like 30 minutes long. So yeah, that's it. Goodbye.